So this is AP Statistics Chapter 1, and this is going to be used for graphing, how to interpret graphs, how to make graphs, and when you should use each kind of graph. And so let's start off with different times. We have bar graphs, and bar graphs are just going to kind of compare different groups. So we have an X here, Y-axis here, and it's going to be, say this is one group, another group, and a third group. So it's going to show compare different groups with the same conditions. And then we're also going to have a line graph, and this is going to show the relationship between two variables. So let's say it's radius of a circle and the area of the circle. So we know that as the radius of a circle gets larger, the area is also going to get larger. So it's going to be somewhat of a direct relationship there. And then also we have a pie chart. So we're going to do a pie chart, and you just kind of do different percentages for groups. So let's say this is group A, and it's like 25%. Group B is 35%. Then we have a third group. C is 40%. And then stem plots. Stem plots are a little more complex. You have one group, so this is how you do it. So let's say, first of all, our data set 1 is 1, 2, 3, 11, 13. So how you do this is you do 0, and you do a 1, and you do, okay, 1, 2, 3, and then 11, 1, and then 3. And then also you should always include some sort of a key or legend when you're creating these plots, just so that when somebody looks at it, they know exactly what the data is. So 0, 1 equals 1. So that's just your regular stem plot, but we can kind of mix it up, make it a little more fancy with a back-to-back stem plot. So you're going to have for back-to-back, you're going to have two sets of data. And so you're going to create another line. So let's say our second set is 4, 5, 10, 15. We'll have a 4, 5, 10, and a 5. So that's going to be, also you should include group 1, and this is group 2. So that's going to be your back-to-back stem plot, and you're only going to have a back-to-back stem plot when you have two different sets of data. And then also we can do something called a split stem plot. So let's just erase this. So your split stem plot is going to have, let's say we want to make everything a little more refined, a little more exact. You can break apart these stems, make it 0, 0, 1, 1. And what this is based off of is you're going to include only some values that have a 0 as the tens place in this one, and some values in the 0 as a tens place in this one. So how we break this apart is we do the 0 through 4 of the digits is in the first one, and 5 through 9 is in the second. So just to make this a little more clear, if our data was 0 to 4, we would have a 4 here. But since it's 5, this is for group 2. Our 5 would go here because it's in the group 5 through 9. And then also, so let's do it for group 1, it'd be just 1, 2. And then here we would have a 0 and a 5, and here we would have a 1 and a 3. So it's just a little more exact. Either way you do it, sometimes teachers will specify for larger sets to do split stems, so it's just good to know what it is. So then also we have box plots. And for box plots, you don't need individual data, but you need these statistics. You're going to need your minimum, your first quartile, your median, and your third quartile. And then also your maximum. And you're also going to want to know what's an outlier if you're doing a modified box plot or a box plot where sometimes instead of just graphing the outlier, they'll make it just an open dot. I'll show you in a second. And so let's just get started with this. So let's say our minimum is 2, Our first quartile is 5, our median is 10, our third quartile is 17, and our maximum is 25. Say 0, 25, it's going to be about 12. And so here's our minimum, just put a little dot there. Our first quartile is 5, so it's going to be around here. Median is 10, right here. Third quartile is 17, it's going to be around here. And our maximum is 25. And so also something that can kind of help you create it and like remember what to do is that a box plot is also called a box and whiskers graph. And so what they're getting at there is what you do is you put a line here, another line here, and another line here. And you just connect it like a box. And then you're going to say, okay, well, what do you do with these two dots here? You're going to connect them to the third quartile and the first quartile like that. So those are kind of, whiskers out there, kind of help you remember what you do. And so let's get back to the outliers. So for outliers, let's say another piece of data that hypothetically was an outlier was 32. Might not necessarily be an outlier, but it could be. And so let's connect it here. Let's say this is 32. You would do a little dot, open dot there. And you would only extend this line to the furthest piece of data that is not an outlier. So it's not going to be, because your maximum is the outlier, so it's going to be the largest piece of data that you have that is not an outlier. And then also we have dot plots and we have time plots. A dot plot is pretty simple. Create a line here. This is going to be your x-axis variable. And so let's say our data set is 1, 2, 4, 6, 7. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You're going to create, we have 1, so you're going to put a little dot there. 2, another dot. 4, 6, and 7. Okay, let's say we added on to this and we added another 1 and we added another 6 and we added another 7. Then you're going to just put another dot, and another dot. And so I put y-axis in quotation marks because technically you do not have a y-axis here, but it is in a sense there because you're just piling up the frequency. So this 2 dots means that there's 2 pieces of data that are 7. Okay, so let's continue on to time plots. So a time plot is basically a line graph, but your x-axis is always going to be time. Say time. Say let's pick an observed variable. Let's pick amount of rainfall. So let's say with time, as time goes on, the amount of rainfall increases, then that's going to be your time plot. So I don't think your teacher is going to necessarily make you create a bunch of time plots, but it's just good to know that it's basically a line plot, but your x-axis is time. Then also, a big part of the graphing is histograms. So histograms, they kind of look like bar charts, but they're a little different than bar charts. So in order to create a histogram, you're going to need the individual data. And so what your histogram is going to look like is it's going to have a x-axis and your y-axis. And your y-axis is always going to be frequency, and your x-axis is going to be whatever variable you're choosing to show. And so also something to keep in mind is that you're going to have intervals. You're not going to have just like each number is separate. You're going to have intervals. So let's say our data is 1, 3, 6, 7, 8, or 9. Let's say our intervals are 1 to 2, 3 to 5, 6 to 8. So let's say 1 to 2, 3, 5, 6 to 8. And then 9 to 11. So we have 1 here. So let's do 1, 2, 3. So we have in 0 to 2, we have 1 set. So we're going to have frequency 1. In this interval, 3 to 5, we have 1. In this interval, 6 to 8, we have 3. Go all the way up to 3. And in this interval, 9 to 11, we only have 1 again. So also, as you notice here, the bars are right next to each other. There's no spacing between the histogram just because it's a kind of continuous chart of like the different intervals or the different classes. And so something to keep in mind when you're creating a histogram is that you can put the individual data in, but unless you still have the individual data, you cannot extract out pieces of data because they're based on these intervals. For example, we know that one number is between 0 and 2, but we don't know exactly which number that is. It could be 0, it could be 1, or it could be 2. For example, here the frequency is 3 and 6 to 8. It could be all 6s, it could be all 7s, or some other mixture of 7 and 8 and 6. So that could be a question on a quiz or something, you know, what graphs show you the individual data in a histogram. Even though you might need it to create it, you cannot actually get that individual data back. So this is how to create graphs for Chapter 1 of AP Statistics.